So the 6D Mark II specs and everything, images, the whole 9 yards, have been leaked rather, ahead of next week's announcement. It's going to be 26.2 megapixels. It's going to have DPAF, 45 all cross type autofocus points, 1080p 60. I'm assuming on the 60. I think 1080p 60. It's going to have time-lapse mode that will output a 4K file, which is great. Its native ISO goes up to 40,000, whereas the 5D Mark IVs, pardon me, goes only to 32,000. So it's a more sensitive sensor, which is great. So, and it's expandable also to 102,400. So it's going to be really flexible in all lighting conditions. That 1080p has electronic image stabilization, which isn't, the best, right? But it is 1080, and 2, there is a version of in-body image stabilization. So suddenly it's so much, this is something that I'm really excited about, because while I'm not a huge fan of electronic image stabilization on the whole, I think it can look a little wacky. I think warp stabilizer is cool in post, but it can really lead to some wacky, funky effects. Having that means that you can use all of your Canon glass that has optical stabilization in it, and now you have two means of stabilization. So your footage is going to be gorge. It's going to be dope. Handheld will be a thing on Canon now, which I am stoked for. 1080, pardon me. The 1080p doesn't bother me so much because there's a huge part of me that wishes that I could shoot in 1080 and output in 1080 a lot more than I do, because I want to get the most out of the APS-C sensor on my 6300, and the full frame 1080, I'm stoked for it. I am amped up for it because I love Canon color science. I love the Canon lenses that I have. I use them all the time. It is a joy to use my Canon 6D. I am hugely biased towards what I'm biased at all towards with photography gear, and I'm hugely biased towards, my own 6D, because it brought me out of the dark ages of APS-C and into the light of full frame. And, it has been the most amazing tool for so many things, and I can only see the 6D Mark II being such a fundamentally better tool for so many things. It's got a higher frame rate, 6.5 FPS. It's got way more, 34 more autofocus points that are all cross type. That's awesome. It's got way higher ISO. I think I got 25,600 expanded. I think it only goes up to 6,400 or 12,800 natively. So this is a huge boost. It's a huge bump in terms of low light performance, and the way sensor tech is developed over these last couple of years. It's a huge boost in low light, high ISO performance. You're going to lose dynamic range, absolutely, but you're still going to be able to come out with a clean enough image to use, especially for the web. It's got a 3-inch tilty flippy touchscreen, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS. There are a couple of big takeaways. One, 1080p 60 DPAF. Time lapses are in 4K. I think for the video shooters out there, this is killer for that. 6.5 frames per second. You don't need 16 or 12 or 20, to be able to capture action. And with the very, right now the sports photography that I'm doing is kids playing soccer, and I'm shooting for a buddy that he runs the program where these kids play soccer, and I could use the 11 FPS that's in my 6300, but I like the image out of my Canon better, and I like the sharpness of my 70-200 f4 LIS way better, so I use that. And so those extra frames per second make a world of difference, and that's what I would rather use. I don't want to use an A9 or a 1DX Mark II or a D5 level camera for that because it doesn't need it. The action isn't, I think a lot of people downplay that FPS because it's like, oh, well, what you could be getting is this. And it's like, yeah, you could, but you're still getting a whole lot out of it. ISO range is huge for me. I feel like almost every time I'm shooting, it's in really compromising lighting situations, which is a bad idea for me, of course. But, I always need fast glass and high ISO. 1080p I'm all right with because I think it's going to be using a full frame sensor as opposed to APS-C, which I'm hugely biased towards, and of course a 4K image off of a full frame sensor would be better, but Canon and 4K and full frame doesn't mix well. $2,000 price point, that's dope, man. Like, you're not going to find a $2,000 4K camera that's full frame at all. So don't even try to find it. I've been reading every post, not every, probably 85% of the posts about the 60 Mark II, everything that's been coming out, like all the forum posts, everything, and people are like all up in arms about there being no second card slot, no joystick, which you have a touch screen, so get over it. And really, and the 4K. And it's like, I get the 4K, but I don't really understand the no second card slot, and I know I'm probably in a minority with that, but I've shot on the same cards for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've held up fine, and they've never failed. And that, maybe I'm just the only person in the world that's never had a card failure, but I'm really happy about that. And I don't feel like I need that second slot. 1080p is gonna, like I said, with the 4K is gonna be a huge kicker, and I addressed the joystick. So I am like obviously pumped about this camera. Like I am so incredibly stoked that it's like, what can I sell to be able to buy this camera? Like, I'm seriously like, can I empty my retirement because I definitely want this? I probably won't. I'm going to be smarter than that. But let me know what you're thinking about it down in the comment section below. I know, Canon can be polarizing. 1080p can be polarizing. But for a lot of the stuff that I shoot, I think that's going to be fine. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. This is just my opinion on it, so, don't take it as a hands-on review or anything, but I'm pumped. So smash that like button if you agree. Go ahead and dislike it if you don't. That's all right, but I hope you can respect that that's my opinion, and I'm absolutely interested in respecting yours. So yeah, subscribe. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next one. Over now.